Hi, this is Dr. Rozakis, and today we are going to explore how age-related macular degeneration can be prevented, stabilized, and in some cases, even reversed. We'll take a closer look at why traditional eye care has often fallen short in addressing this condition, and we'll introduce an emerging therapy known as red light therapy or photobiomodulation that offers new hope. This presentation is for the thousands of people who filled out our macular degeneration Facebook questionnaire and shared their concerns, their frustrations, and their hopes. It's for those who have lost vision in one or both eyes, for those who have noticed their vision getting worse over the past 6 months, for those currently receiving eye injections for wet macular degeneration or geographic atrophy. It's for the people who feel frustrated by the lack of new solutions for AMD, who are wondering why their current care isn't stopping the disease. It's for anyone who wants to prevent vision loss, stabilize what they have, or even reverse the course of macular degeneration. It's for those curious about red light therapy, and for anyone searching for the most advanced, cutting-edge strategies available today. Because if you've ever wondered whether more could be done for your eyes, you're about to find out that the answer is yes, and the science behind it might surprise you. This presentation may not apply to everyone. If you've been diagnosed with a macular hole, a blockage in the retinal arteries, Fuchs's dystrophy of the cornea, or if floaters are your main concern, this likely isn't the right fit. It's also less likely to help if your vision has been severely reduced for the past 2 years. In cases like that, the chances of significant improvement are low. I want to start by sharing a hidden truth about eye care, something most people haven't been told. For the past 20 years, patients have been taking eye vitamins hoping to stop macular degeneration. But here's the truth. Those vitamins have largely failed to stop the disease, and there are good reasons why. Let's take a look at what those reasons are. Let's be clear. Ophthalmologists are surgeons. We're trained to operate cataracts, LASIK, glaucoma, lasers. That's our world. Macular degeneration, though, hasn't always fit. Decades ago, we used lasers to treat it, but that often left people with worse vision due to blind spots. Then came eye injections for wet macular, finally a surgical solution. But here's the hidden truth. Almost no one treats macular degeneration like a medical disease. Very few ask, why are the cells degenerating? What's causing it? Ophthalmology isn't built to address the biochemical root causes. Oxidative stress, inflammation, hormonal imbalance, mitochondrial decline. That's not our training, but it's exactly what we need to focus on. And that's what this presentation is here to reveal. Because ophthalmology hasn't been trained to treat the underlying biochemical causes of macular degeneration, the best the field could offer was a simple, one-size-fits-all supplement, the AREDS vitamin formula. But let's be honest, AREDS doesn't prevent dry macular degeneration. It doesn't prevent wet macular degeneration. It doesn't improve vision. In fact, statistically, it helps only 1 in 17 people, and even then, just a little. So you have to ask yourself, why has this been the standard of care since 1992? The current strategy is like using a rotary phone in the age of smartphones. It's outdated, it doesn't keep up with the science, and the result? More and more people are losing vision as their macula continues to deteriorate. Just look at the trend in this graph. Let's take a look at what's actually in the current AREDS formula. Do we really believe that a mix of vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, or lutein and zeaxanthin with a little zinc and copper is enough to stop macular degeneration? Over time, we learned that the zinc dosage was actually too high and could cause harm. So not only did it fail to help many people, it may have caused toxicity in some. Look at how basic this formula is. Why is it so simplistic? There are hundreds of other vitamins, nutraceuticals, and supplements that could have been studied. So why were these chosen, and why hasn't it evolved? Something about this doesn't add up. The real answer is shocking, and I learned it by chance. Over 20 years ago, I shared a cab with a retina specialist. At the time, I was becoming deeply interested in anti-aging medicine and the role of vitamins and nutraceuticals in supporting health and slowing down disease. When I brought up macular degeneration, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "We did the ARED study to disprove the value of nutraceuticals." I couldn't believe it. When do you design a study just to prove something does not work? But suddenly it made sense why the formulation was so weak and limited. They were not trying to find the best possible solution. They were trying to show that vitamins do not help macular degeneration. But to their surprise, even this underpowered formula showed some benefit. And from that, the AREDS formulation was born. What I want you to see is this in big red letters. If the real goal had been to prove the value of nutraceuticals, imagine what could have been discovered. Instead, AREDS became what we call a straw man, a deliberately weak argument set up just to be knocked down. They wanted it to fail. And because of that approach, many people lost precious vision that might have been saved. Nutraceuticals are a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that's not by accident. People are experiencing real benefits, and the science backs it up. Research shows that when used strategically, nutraceuticals can balance cholesterol, improve mood and bone health, support heart health and immunity, lower inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, reduce joint pain, and even normalize blood test results. With all these proven benefits, it raises a powerful question. If nutraceuticals can do all this, why not use them to benefit the macula? The reason is clear. Most eye doctors are simply not trained or interested in this science and don't have time to add it into their current practice model. This inactivity has led us to where we are today. As you can see in this graph, the number of people diagnosed with both dry and wet macular degeneration has continued to rise year after year. We are facing a growing epidemic, and it's clear that the current approach isn't enough. This crisis demands better answers and a better strategy moving forward. If the goal 25 years ago had been to prove the value of nutraceuticals rather than dismiss them, we could have seen a completely different outcome. Instead of the flimsy straw man approach you see on the left, imagine we had Big Mike on the right, a strong, well-designed, evidence-based strategy of the best vitamins and nutraceuticals built to truly fight age-related macular degeneration. But that's not what happened. I have a profound sadness that so many people lost vision because top doctors and scientists failed to do their utmost to treat macular degeneration using the best vitamins, supplements, and nutraceuticals. It didn't have to be this way. The knowledge was there, the potential was there, but the will to fully explore it wasn't. And that failure by the very people trusted to lead has cost millions their sight. This has to change, and that's what this presentation is here to do. To shed light on what went wrong and, more importantly, to show a better path forward. Macular degeneration has many forms to it and different treatments depending upon when it is diagnosed. On the left, you see a perfectly normal macula, but over time it begins to change, developing what we call drusen, those yellow deposits that indicate early damage. That's the middle image, and if left unchecked, it can progress to the third stage, where abnormal blood vessels begin to leak and bleed, causing even more vision loss. What I'd like to do next is walk you through each of these stages, including one of the most devastating forms, called geographic atrophy. That's what we'll cover in the next part of this presentation. Macular degeneration begins in what I call the invisible phase. At this point, there's no structural damage yet, nothing you or even your eye doctor can see. But beneath the surface, there's biochemical dysfunction already taking place. This dysfunction is caused by deficiencies and toxicities in the macula's delicate chemistry. The only way to detect it early is through a type of functional testing called dark adaptation. It's a simple test. After a flash of bright light, we measure how long it takes your vision to recover. If it takes more than 5 minutes, it's a sign that the macula isn't functioning properly. Biochemically, things are already going wrong, and this stage is critical, because if we can catch and treat macular degeneration here, before any structural damage occurs, it's the closest we come to curing the disease. The next phase of the disease is called dry macular degeneration. At this stage, we can now see the damage It's no longer invisible. What we see are yellow-white spots called drusen, which are areas of structural damage within the macula. In the bottom left image, you can see how these drusen create lumps and bumps beneath the retina. They're the physical result of biochemical dysfunction, driven by deficiencies, toxicities, oxidative damage, inflammation, and other dysfunctions that arise with aging. But something else is starting to happen here too. A protein called VEGF begins to rise. And you need to know about VEGF because it's the key player that leads to wet macular degeneration. Now, unfortunately, many patients at this stage are simply told to take those basic vitamins we talked about earlier, the ones that don't do much, and to eat more leafy greens. You're also told to call the office if your vision suddenly gets worse, which usually means it's progressed to the wet form. And trust me, that's not where you want to end up. This is what happens when dry macular degeneration progresses and crosses a dangerous line. We now enter the stage of wet macular degeneration. This form is far more aggressive. It begins when abnormal blood vessels, driven by a protein called VEGF, start to invade the macula. These vessels are weak and unstable, and they leak fluid and blood into the retina, as you can clearly see in the image above. The root cause is still biochemical dysfunction, deficiencies, toxicities, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation. But now, VEGF is in overdrive, accelerating the damage. This stage can lead to sudden and severe vision loss. It's often detected with OCT scans or with tools like the Amsler grid. And unfortunately, treatment usually involves repeated injections directly into the eye, as shown in the lower image. This is where many patients end up, because the early stages weren't addressed aggressively enough, and that's what we're working to change. This is one of the most devastating forms of macular degeneration, geographic atrophy. At this stage, we're looking at advanced irreversible damage. The cells of the macula have wasted away completely, leaving a large area of dead tissue, as shown in the image. Once the damage reaches this point, it's permanent. The vision lost here cannot be recovered. Just like the earlier stages, the root cause is biochemical dysfunction, age-related deficiencies, toxic buildup, oxidative stress, and inflammation. But by this point, that dysfunction has gone unchecked for too long. It's detectable through an eye exam or OCT imaging, but unfortunately, there's no cure. The only approved treatment now involves a series of eye injections that may slow the progression, but they can't restore what's already lost. This is exactly why early detection and early intervention are so critical. Once the macula reaches this level of damage, we're no longer talking about prevention. We're managing irreversible loss. This slide gives us a basic summary of the state of macular degeneration. It's a progressive disease, starting with a healthy macula, then developing drusen, and eventually leading to leakage, bleeding, and injections. Our goal is simple. We must stop this progression and, where possible, even reverse it. And that's exactly what the next part of this presentation is all about. New approaches, better strategies, and real hope for those living with this disease. We need to do everything we can to protect the functionality of your macula, because once it's lost, it leaves a central blind spot like the one you see in this image. That central dark area means you can no longer drive or read or recognize faces. And unlike glasses, contacts, LASIK, or even cataract surgery, vision lost from macular degeneration is extremely hard to recover. That's the bad news. But here's the good news. There are ways to slow, stop, and even reverse some of this damage. And that's exactly what we're going to cover next. The good news begins with my interest in finding better ways to solve problems. That's the mind of an engineer, and that's my background. I'm Dr. Rozakis. I took that engineering mindset with me to Cornell Medical School and then to the Duke Eye Center, where I trained in ophthalmology. I applied those skills to help pioneer PRK and LASIK eye surgery, and I hold multiple patents in this field. But then, by a twist of fate, I was introduced to the world of anti-aging medicine, and I was fascinated because it approached disease in a way that made logical sense. It treated disease as something with real causes, and therefore real solutions. not just something to manage with medications or surgeries aimed only at the symptoms. The challenge, of course, was that this kind of care depends heavily on understanding biochemistry. And that's when I had the good fortune of meeting Dr. Brian Bankey. He holds a PhD in biochemistry and went on to earn a master's degree in nutrition. His thesis focused specifically on macular degeneration. For almost 15 years now, we've worked together with a shared mission to develop a method, a clear scientific approach to tackle the root causes of disease and aging. At the heart of our method is one simple, powerful idea. Making cells healthier is the key to longevity and fighting disease. Your body is made up of trillions of cells, and when those cells are functioning at their best, you function at your best. So here's the concept. If you nurture your cells will nurture you back. It's that partnership between you and your biology that leads to a longer, healthier life. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's logical, it's science, and it's where real healing begins. So, how do we actually improve the health of your cells? That's where our method comes in. Our approach is based on a combination of detailed medical history and advanced lab testing. We don't guess, we measure. And what we're measuring is your biochemistry to help determine what foods, nutraceuticals, and hormones your cells need to reverse deficiencies and toxicities that can cause degeneration. This is how we improve cell function, and ultimately, how we work to slow or reverse diseases like macular degeneration. What is exciting is that by choosing the right nutraceuticals, hormones, and nutritional strategy, we can help cells repair DNA damage, produce energy, reduce oxidative stress, reduce inflammation, turn on good genes, and turn off bad genes. All of this will heal the biochemistry inside the cell to help the cell restore its proper, optimal function. Dr. Baki and I applied this method to many different medical conditions associated with aging, and as a result, we received an award in 2015 for the advancement of healthcare. However, the big question that remained since I am an ophthalmologist was, can this strategy benefit macular degeneration? To answer this question, 5 years ago in 2020, we studied 365 eyes with dry or wet macular degeneration to see if the method could stabilize and improve vision in dry disease and if it could benefit wet macular degeneration. We had a hunch it would help because we had a few patients who did very well on the program. That's why we did the study. We certainly did not want to waste our time pursuing macular degeneration if it wasn't going to help. So we had to figure this out because macular degeneration was such a public health problem. The results of the study were fascinating. Virtually all eyes with dry macular degeneration could be stabilized, but even more exciting, 48% of the dry macular eyes showed improvement in vision. This is not supposed to happen. It is supposed to be an irreversible progressive disease, but people were able to see better, which is groundbreaking. And now, years later, we continue to see long-term stability or improvement in many of these patients. This is real, it's measurable, and it's published in a peer-reviewed journal. Had it not been for the improvement in vision, we never would have created our macular program. What this means is that we now have a new method to preserve vision that must be utilized before irreversible damage sets in. The image on the left may look like a typical retina with drusen, but those flames represent what's really happening beneath the surface: oxidative stress, inflammation, VEGF rising, energy production failing, DNA damage building up. And if left untreated, that slow burn turns into what you see on the right, a full-blown fire. This is what happens when macular degeneration progresses to the point of bleeding, scarring, and vision loss that can't be undone. But here's the key. We now have tools to put out the fire early. By restoring cellular energy, supporting DNA repair, lowering oxidation and inflammation, and controlling VEGF, we give the retina a chance to heal. We don't want to wait until the house is burning down. We want to treat before irreversible vision loss occurs. Let's explore the personal experiences of individuals with dry macular degeneration to gain firsthand insights into the impact of our treatment approaches. Hearing directly from patients can provide a clearer and more vivid understanding of the potential benefits and real-life implications of these treatments. This patient is the first patient we treated. She was on the program for 15 years, and during those 15 years, she remained stable, which is fantastic. This is the first patient we treated who noted improvement in vision. We were so fascinated by her improvement that we put out a press release on her result in 2013. She was able to return back to small-sized lettering on her Kindle because of the program we put her on. Marilyn has experienced remarkable progress in her left eye's vision. Initially tested at 20/50, it has improved to 20/30 in less than a year, thanks to the macular program. She also notes that she hasn't had any illnesses, not even a cold, since January 2020, which she attributes to the program's potential in slowing down the aging process and supporting overall health. This patient had a fantastic improvement in drusen, which you can see in the scans. Vision also improved. She and her ophthalmologist were shocked. This individual's vision improved dramatically, going from 2400 to 2080, and they can now watch TV much clearer. Imagine if we had connected when their vision was at 2040. It's a bit disheartening they waited until seeing 2400 before reaching out to us. Don't make that mistake. Regarding wet macular degeneration, the findings were both intriguing and unexpected. Our research revealed that 60% of treated eyes either maintained or improved their vision or required fewer injections. For instance, patients who previously needed injections every 4 weeks could extend that interval to 8 or even 12 weeks. In some cases, the need for injections ceased entirely. The breakthrough came when we discovered that our method could suppress the gene responsible for producing VEGF. We believe this approach can complement anti-VEGF injections by deactivating the VEGF gene, which is quite cool. More on that later. Let's now review testimonials of patients with wet macular degeneration. These testimonials are more dramatic because having wet macular degeneration is a high-stress situation. This was a landmark case for us, a woman with macular degeneration, as shown by the red arrow, who was not responding to eye injections. After we began our care plan, that area under the macula melted away and her vision improved. This was back in 2014, and the patient was highlighted on the evening news. Her name is Patty, and she is one of the reasons why we persevered to create the macular program.
What if you could prevent it from happening by supercharging your cells?
I was struggling. I was having a lot of distortion, almost a fishbowl effect out of my right eye, and I was having trouble focusing.
She had genetic errors which impacted her methylation pathways, and she had really major problems with nutrition. Certain foods that she was eating caused a tremendous amount of inflammation in her body.
Within 3 months, my distortion was easing greatly. And within 6 months, that was completely gone, and my eyesight was crystal clear.
8 months after the program, that mound is gone, and Patty no longer needs those eye injections.
This is a great testimonial. Jennifer says that her eye doctor told her that her vision and scans improved, and that doesn't ever happen. So of course she's very excited, as are we. This person shared some great news with us. His left eye, which had wet macular degeneration, has now dried up. That's huge. And there was even a surprise bonus. His right eye, which had dry macular degeneration, also showed improvement. His eye doctor was amazed, saying it was the only time he'd seen such a recovery given how advanced the condition was. In summary, macular degeneration is caused by the degeneration of cells in the macula. Compared to AREDS, there's a great deal more that can be done by selecting from the right nutraceuticals, foods, and hormones to treat the deficiencies and toxicities causing cell damage. If we do that, we have a chance to not only stabilize the disease but also improve vision if the damage is caught in time. Left untreated, there will be more degeneration, vision loss, and the possibility of needing eye injections for wet macular degeneration due to rising VEGF levels as shown by the red arrow. What is interesting is that the method can suppress the creation of VEGF, which means it can reduce the probability of dry macular degeneration developing into wet macular degeneration. With regard to geographic atrophy, the goal is to avoid it altogether with early treatment. But if you have this condition, the macular program can help slow or stop its progression, which can help you avoid eye injections. The take-home message for wet macular degeneration is that the macular program can reduce or suppress the creation of VEGF and make it more likely that you will need fewer eye injections, as it simultaneously does something the injections don't do, which is support the health of the cells in the macula to support vision. At the core of everything we've shared today is this simple truth: when you nurture your cells will nurture you in return. Once we identify your specific deficiencies and toxicities by blood testing, we can begin to help your cells repair DNA, reduce inflammation, lower oxidative stress, activate protective genes, and silence harmful ones, like the VEGF gene. This restores healthy biochemical function and supports the very foundation of how your retina works. The most important thing you can do is take action before irreversible vision loss occurs, because once retinal cells are gone, they cannot be replaced. Let's now talk about red light therapy, also called photobiomodulation. So how does this play out? We are to believe that if we subject the eye to red or near infrared light, it will target the mitochondria, which will boost energy production, as well as reduce oxidative stress. They've done studies, and they believe that the studies are showing that people who get this therapy can gain a few letters on the eye chart, not lines, letters. They claim that they can help reduce drusen formation and slow the growth of geographic atrophy. Their most definitive study was called LightSight 3. 148 eyes were followed for 2 years. Compared to controls, the treatment group had a 5.4 letter improvement versus 3 letters in the sham group. That's such a trivial difference, so I don't think it is improving vision. They also talk about slowing down geographic atrophy. I think my conclusion is that there's something to this to help with stability and hopefully provide some level of improvement. So, what do we have? What conclusions do we draw? Photobiomodulation, what's the hype? What's the reality? We need to be skeptical, but open-minded. The eye is subjected to light all the time. Why now, all of a sudden, if we give it infrared light, it's going to magically improve the health of the cells? This doesn't add up to me. What's supporting the fact that it doesn't add up is that they're squeezing real hard on the data to try to argue for an improvement in vision. They are talking about 4 to 5 letters improvement, which is nothing versus controls. I want to see 2 to 3 lines of improvement, not measure improvement in letters. So I would argue that there's more stability being shown here than improvement. The other problem is the short duration of follow-up, and the small sample size weakens the claims. Plus, there's a lot of treatments. We're talking 27 sessions, and the cost is $6,000. I think the takeaway is that red light may slightly stabilize dry AMD, but vision gains are minimal, and we're hopeful that with more analysis they'll show more benefit. Right now, it's more hope than evidence. It's fair to say that if money were not an option, the best strategy to stop the disease in the dry form would be a combination of red light therapy and the macula program. Red light therapy is sort of like another supplement that has its own beneficial effects, and we welcome that. If we couple that with the macular program, we have basically an outside-in therapy, which is the red light, and an inside-out therapy, which is the macular program, all focused on improving cellular health. You learned a great deal today. Arguably, you are now more knowledgeable. You now know that the solution to macular cell degeneration has to do with fixing biochemistry, and you know that can be done through the proper selection of foods, nutraceuticals, and hormones, and red light therapy. You are now empowered with the knowledge you need to preserve your vision. Most importantly, you learn that the sooner you rectify the problems in your biochemistry, the sooner you will be able to keep or improve the vision you have. We will now go into greater detail about how to take the next steps to stabilize or improve your vision. You probably have questions based on the information you have just been presented. We can answer your questions and talk about how to make a plan to protect your vision. There should be a button associated with this video that you can click to be put on our calendar so we can talk about your visual needs. On behalf of the macular team, we look forward to assisting you in your fight for sight. If you have any difficulty, please call 440-777-2667.